The cell was made of black steel, cold, silent, buried under layers of stone, deep inside the Varnock war fortress. No light entered, no sound escaped. The Varnock built this place for one reason, to break the unbreakable. Inside, the human sat. In chains, his name was Tehran Cole. He had been there for 36 days. Maybe more. Time didn't matter anymore. There was no clock, no sun, only cold pain. And watchers. 3 times a day the Varnock came, not to feed him, not to speak, only to test him. They used blades, they used poisons, even tried psychic torment. Machines that tore into his mind like claws. But Tehran didn't scream, he didn't cry, he didn't beg. He just looked at them, eyes burning with something they couldn't name, not hate, not fear. Something else. Fire Varnock Commander Scyther stood behind a wall of glass, arms crossed, his blue skin tight with frustration. "This is not possible," he hissed. "Humans are soft, weak, emotional. He should have broken on day 1. Scientist beside him, Vorek, shook his head. "This one, he's different. We've scanned his brainwaves. They spike when he's in pain, but instead of shutting down, they become sharper, like he's feeding on it." Feeding. Scyther's eyes narrowed. "Like a beast?" "No," said Vorek quietly. "But like a flame. The more we hurt him, the brighter he gets," Scyther growled. "Then burn him. Let's see what happens when he has nothing left to burn." That night, Tehran was dragged into the execution chamber. 6 Varnock guards held him. They strapped him to a steel wall. His hands were nailed wide. His feet were locked in molten cuffs. The air filled with the smell of heat and blood. The chamber, lights dimmed. A large furnace opened. The floor beneath him turned red. Scyther stepped forward with the ignition torch. "You should have begged, human. You should have screamed." Tehran didn't reply. Scyther raised the torch and smiled. When the fire touched Tehran's skin, something changed. There was no scream, no crackling flesh, no melting. Instead, the fire bent toward him. It twisted, danced like it knew him, like it belonged to him. Then Tehran's body began to glow. Not from pain, from power. His veins lit up orange. And gold like magma in human shape. His eyes turned bright white. The flames rose higher, wrapping around his body, not destroying it. But becoming part of it, the Varnock stepped back in panic. Tehran looked up. He was smiling. "Impossible." Scyther roared. "Kill him now." Guards fired shock lances. Bolts of dark energy tore across the room. Tehran stepped forward. The steel melted under his feet. Chains turned to ash. The lances hit him but did nothing. The energy vanished into his skin like raindrops on a furnace. Then he raised one hand. No weapon, just fingers. And fire. Raw, burning human fire. He pointed at the nearest guard. The flames leaped out like a snake and swallowed the alien whole. The scream echoed once, then stopped. Another wave of fire spread like a storm. The walls blistered. The lights exploded. Scyther turned and ran. But the door melted shut behind him. Tehran walked through the heat like it was home, and then he vanished. Not in smoke, not in pieces, but in light. A burst of blinding white flame erupted and he was gone. Alarms howled across the fortress. Flames still licked the air. Nothing was left of the chamber, only a mark. Burned into the wall where he stood. "You made me this." 12 hours later, the Varnock High Council met in secrecy. There were no recordings of Tehran's escape. All surveillance had burned away. Scyther was dead. The scientist, Vorek, was missing. Half the fortress was gone. The council leader, Grand Speaker Ralvik, slammed his staff. "How does one human walk through fire? That's not science. Madness." But the answer came from the shadows. An old Varnock elder spoke, voice shaking. "There is a name, buried in our past. A story we do not tell, of being made of flame. It came before, long ago. We burned its world. It promised to return. Ralvek scoffed. A myth? No, the elder whispered. A mistake. In deep space, aboard a stolen Varnak shuttle, Tyron sat alone. His skin no longer glowed. His body bore the marks of what was done to him, cuts, burns, bruises. But he didn't look broken. He looked calm. He tapped the shuttle console. Pulled. Up a map of the Varnak Empire, dozens of stars, hundreds of worlds. He leaned forward and whispered 3 words. Let's start small. The Varnak fleet arrived in silence. 12 warships. 1 command cruiser. All heavily armed, orbiting a small asteroid base where the first Varnak signal had gone dark 2 days ago. Inside the lead ship, Commander Varn stood stiff. His sharp silver armor glowed under red lights, where his voice was cold. Scanners, he ordered. Is anyone alive down there? The officer replied quickly. No life signs, Commander. Station is dead. No energy, no heat, no air. Varn stared at the asteroid spinning slowly on the screen. Then why, he said, is the hull still glowing? Landing team? Was sent down. 5 Varnak soldiers in fire-resistant armor. Laser rifles charged. They moved through the silent corridors of the mining station. Nothing moved. No blood, no bodies, no battle damage, just ash. Every room was coated in thick black. Dust. Walls burned, screens melted. Chairs turned to puddles of slag, and in the center of the command deck, there were words, burned into the metal floor by something far hotter than any torch. 2 words. Return him. Commander Varn's fists clenched. I want the human hunted. Tracked. Vaporized. But then, alarms screamed across the fleet. The cruiser's systems flashed red. Something was boarding, but no ship approached. No signal, no heat. Signature. Then the lights flickered, one by one. Warships went dark. Inside Ship 07, panic spread. The crew ran through the halls. Weapons drawn, as the walls began to heat. No breaches, shouted the engineer. No intruders detected, and the captain screamed, pointing down the hall. A figure walked through the corridor, slowly, calmly, a human man. His skin glowed red, eyes white as lightning. His body looked like molten stone. Wrapped in smoke and flame, one of the soldiers opened fire. The laser bolts struck the figure but passed through. He kept walking. Fire bloomed behind him with every step. The hallway melted, and the crew burned where they stood. Across the fleet, one by one, systems failed. Engines overheated, weapons misfired, metal turned to orange sludge. Ships began to drift, their insides cooking. No one could find the source. There were no records, no clear footage, only the screams, and the burning mark left behind on every ship's wall. Pain returns to its source. Back on the command ship, Varn stood frozen. They said he was a soldier, he whispered. The science officer shook her head. No, sir, he was a scout, not even combat-rated. No armor, no implants. Then how is he doing this? She stared at the data. He isn't using tech. No signals, no heat trails, just energy, raw, alive. Varn's face went pale. You mean fire? She nodded slowly. Yes, but not from fuel or flame. Then what? The officer turned. To him? From himself? Tyron Cole sat alone in a drifting Varnak shuttle. No weapons, no crew, just a seat in his memories. His hands rested on his knees, blackened and cracked like volcanic stone. His chest burned with steady heat. Not from rage, not anymore. From purpose. He remembered everything. The pain, the screams, the experiments, the laughter of the Varnak as they cut into him, calling him a test. Now they would learn. Humans do not forget. They burn. A secret Varnak outpost received a message hours later, a simple code. Encrypted in an old human pattern, only 2 coordinates. One was the capital. The other was a world no longer on their star charts. It had been destroyed decades ago. Its name, Volturn 9, the planet where the Varnak first tested their pain harvest. technology, where they burned the first human colonists alive to power their reactors. Now that world glowed again. Something was rising from its ashes. The Varnock Empire broadcast a warning across their territories. If you see a human glowing with light, do not engage, do not speak, do not resist. Evacuate immediately. But it was too late. Outposts fell. Ships vanished. Entire cities woke in the night to find skies glowing red and a man made of flame. Standing above their towers, he said only one thing to every survivor. You gave me fire. Now feel what burns inside. A quiet control room on Varnock Prime. The Emperor watched the reports. Is it one man? He asked his generals. They hesitated. Yes and no. He frowned. Explain. One general stepped forward. It's him. But he's changed. We scan his heat levels, and the readings go beyond weapons. His core, it's like a star, the Emperor whispered. How does a man become a star? No one answered, and far away. Tyron stood at the edge of space. He looked out at the stars of the Varnock Empire. They had once laughed when he begged for light. Now they would see he was the light. He opened his palm, and a small, flickering flame appeared in his hand. He smiled, because next, he would show them what real fire looked like. The Varnock Science Syndicate worked deep under the surface of their secret world. Dravith 12. No sun reached this place. No life escaped from it. And for one reason, this is where they built monsters. Inside a steel lab, walls covered in frost, and light blue screens. Teams of scientists stood around a massive cloning tank. Inside the tank, a human dot or something like one. Subject is stable, said Chief Biotech Vesic. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled. DNA match confirmed. It's him, Terran Cole. Commander Nerak leaned closer. You're sure this clone will obey? Vesic hesitated. We used full control protocols. His mind is wiped. His memory erased. We added chemical blocks too. Prevent aggression and the fire. Vesic looked nervous. It's inside, dormant. But we believe we can guide it, shape it. Nerak stepped back. Good. If we can't stop the burning human, we'll make our own. The lights dimmed. As the tank drained, red liquid poured out like blood. The clone's eyes snapped open. They were white, just like the real one. The scientists watched silently as the clone stepped out. His body looked human, muscles strong, skin pale with glowing veins. He stood straight, calm. His voice came out flat. Command accepted. Awaiting purpose. Vesic smiled. He's perfect. But then the temperature dropped. Alarms buzzed. The clone's breathing changed. He looked around, confused, then angry. Emotional surge detected. No quotes, no. Reset him. Vesic screamed, but it was too late. The clone blinked. Once, and the room turned orange. Flames burst from his chest. Steel cracked. People screamed. The clone roared not like a human, not like a beast, but like a furnace exploding open. Flames shot from his hands. The first wave of fire turned 5 guards to ash in seconds. Commander Nerak drew his weapon. Put him down. He fired direct, hit to the chest. The clone staggered. Then laughed, not a joyful laugh. A mocking, broken sound. Purpose accepted, he whispered. I'll burn everything. The lab turned into chaos. Doors sealed automatically. Emergency foam dropped from the ceiling but evaporated. Before touching the clone's skin, one scientist reached for the panic switch. He never made it. The clone hurled a wave of fire straight through the reinforced wall. The heat broke the lights. Systems overloaded. Screens melted. Then the clone walked into the fire and vanished. Hours later, an emergency drone hovered above the wreckage of Draft-12. It sent back one image, a smoking crater where the lab had been, and at the center, a symbol burned into the rock. A single flame. The shape of a human skull. Inside it, on Varnock Prime, panic spread fast. How did this happen? the Emperor demanded. Vesic, burned and half-melted, spoke through a damaged holoscreen. We cloned him. It worked, but something was inside the DNA. A memory. A command. What? Command? Vesic looked up, eyes wide with terror. Burn. The Empire called it a failure, but others called it something else. A curse. Because now there were two, far away. Tyron Cole stood alone in orbit above a Varnock fuel refinery. He didn't need to move. He just raised one hand toward the planet, and the fire started. Inside the core, moments later, the whole planet cracked like glass. He turned away as flames rose into space. But something was wrong. He felt it, a pulse, a flicker, like something had copied his fire. But twisted it. In the shadows of an asteroid field, the clone moved silently. He no longer followed orders. He no longer listened to voices. He wanted only one thing, to find the original and take the fire back. The twin suns of Varnak Colony World. 9 shone brightly above the tall silver towers. It was a day of peace. A day of ceremony. The Varnak citizens wore white robes and golden chains. Music played. Flags danced in the wind. The governor stood on the stage, smiling. Today we celebrate 100 years of Varnak victory. Empire grows stronger, and the skies obey our will. The crowd cheered. No one noticed the sky had turned. Orange, far above. A figure stood in open space. No ship, no suit. Just a Mantaran. Cole floating in silence. His body glowed like a dying star. Veins lit like lava. Eyes as bright as suns. He breathed once. And fell. Down through the clouds, heat followed him. Wind turned to steam. Air caught fire. The people looked up. Someone pointed. Is that a meteor? Then the fire opened, and he stepped out. He didn't land with a crash. He didn't attack. Tyron walked through the city, gates like a visitor. No weapon, no army, just fire on his shoulders. And pain in his steps? Guards rushed forward. Their rifles buzzed, shields activated. Stop, shouted the captain. Do not come closer. Tyron didn't stop. His feet melted the metal street. The air shimmered around him like heat over a volcano. One. Guard fired. The shot didn't even reach him. It burned away in midair. Then, Tyron finally spoke. Just one word. Return. The soldiers hesitated. They didn't know what it meant. The next step Tyron took made the ground shake. Windows shattered. Fountains boiled. Even the governor's stage began to melt. Still, Tyron didn't raise his voice. He spoke again. Return what you took. 1. Officer tried to grab him. He lunged and burst into flames without even touching Tyron's skin. The body turned to black ash. Before it hit the ground, the rest of the guards ran. The people screamed. The white celebration robes caught fire like paper. But Tyron didn't attack the crowd. He walked straight to the palace. Doors melted open as he approached. Statues cracked and fell behind him. He moved like a storm in slow motion, unstoppable, silent, and full of rage. Inside the palace, the governor hid behind armed robots. He screamed, "This is Varnak land. You do not belong here, human." Tyron stopped at the edge of the chamber. He raised his hand. The robots turned to molten puddles. Without being touched, then he pointed at the governor. "You took the children. You took their pain. Now take it back." The floor beneath the governor caught fire. The walls turned black. He fell to his knees, begging, "Please." "I didn't know. I just followed orders." Kyron said nothing. But the fire around him spoke for him. The room went white with heat. The screaming stopped. Outside, people waited, watching, afraid. Then the doors opened again. Kyron stepped out. He looked around, saw their faces. He raised his hands. And the flames vanished. The fire disappeared. Only heat remained. Tyron's body returned to normal, his skin. Now gray and cracked, his face tired, he spoke one last time. "You are not my enemy, but you watched. You all watched." Then he vanished. Not in light, not in flames, just gone. Across the Varnak Empire, the news spread like wildfire. The The fire walked and it spoke. Thousands saw it. Millions watched the recordings the burning human had. Changed. He didn't want war. He wanted justice. But not all heard the message. In a black lab on the dark side of the moon. The clone stood before a map. He saw the event. He watched the fire. And he felt something inside. Envy. He whispered to himself, "If he won't burn the galaxy, I will." The winds over Varnak Prime shifted. The sky turned a strange shade of gold. The air felt heavier. Old priests stepped outside their temples and looked up. Something was coming, but not from space, from the past. Far below the Capitol towers, deep under the city, the Varnak kept a secret chamber. No light entered this place. No visitors came here. Only the elders of history were allowed inside. They called this room the Vault of Forgotten Things. Stone walls. Ancient scrolls. Artifacts older than the Empire itself. And in the center of the vault, an old symbol, carved into the floor, a circle of fire. Inside it, the shape of a man. For centuries, the Varnak thought it was just myth, a story meant to scare children, but today, the symbol began to glow. Elder Tharik stood alone when it happened. He saw the red light rising from the carving. He felt the heat in the air. The walls began to shake. Then a voice echoed inside his mind. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry. It was truth. I have returned. He buried the flame, but it never died. Meanwhile, across the city, Turan Cole stood at the edge of the Grand Archives. He looked smaller now, weaker. His steps were slower. The fire no longer burned from his skin but behind his eyes. It still lived. He had no army. No weapon, just a small flame resting in the center of his chest. But the Varnak watched him with fear greater than any war machine. Security drones followed him. Elite soldiers tracked his path. None dared to move. Tyron passed a statue of the first emperor. He stopped. His fingers touched the base. The stone melted at his touch, revealing an old plaque hidden underneath. Words in human language, burned in, not carved. Project Emberlight, do not awaken. Tyron whispered to himself, "You tried to erase us, even from your stone." But he kept walking inside the vault. Elder Thuric fell to his knees. He activated the emergency beacon. Alarms rang across the capital. The Emperor himself received the message. He is not just human. He is the first flame. The Emperor laughed when he heard it. Nonsense. We broke his kind long ago. They were test subjects. Failed ones. But General Cross didn't laugh. He showed the Emperor the old footage, classified, forgotten, buried. In the oldest server vaults, it showed a small moon 300 years ago. A secret lab. The screen flickered as screaming echoed through audio channels. Inside a chamber, a human floated in a tank. His body twisted with fire. Scientists begged for someone to shut down the reactor. Then, the footage cut to white. The words flashed across the screen. Project Emberlight. Terminated. Subject escaped. The Emperor's voice went cold. "You're telling me he's not new?" "No," said the general. "He's the first." Back in the Grand Archives, Tyron reached the heart of the city, a massive dome of crystal and gold. Books from every world. Histories from every race. He placed his hand on the central control pillar. The lights flickered. The systems failed. The holographic history of the Varnak Empire shut off, and then, one by one, the hidden files unlocked. Images appeared. A long line of human test subjects. Men, women, children, all in pain. All screaming. All strapped to machines. The Varnak didn't conquer Earth. They took its people secretly. Quietly and used them to power their technology. Human agony became energy. The truth was now public. Every screen in the city played the footage across the empire. People watched in horror. The Varnak citizens had believed humans were aggressive, wild, uncivilized. They never knew. Humans were used like batteries. Now they did. And the fire was rising. Tyron turned to the cameras. He spoke simply, slowly. No anger, just sorrow. You built your empire on screams. You turned pain into power. You took light from those who begged for mercy. His eyes lit like suns again. The crystal floor cracked under his feet. I was your first. I was your warning. You didn't listen. The Empire's military responded fast. Warships surrounded the planet. Orbital cannons powered up. One general spoke to the Emperor. Shall we fire on the capital to stop him? The Emperor hesitated, but before he could answer, Tyrion raised one hand and spoke a single word. Burn. A red wave shot from the city's center. Not flame. Not plasma. Memory. Every citizen. Every soldier. Every child saw what Tyrion saw. They felt what he felt. 30 years of silence. 30 years of pain. Alone. Cut. Strapped to a cold table in the dark. And when it ended, most Varnock fell to their knees. Some wept. Some fled. Some threw down their weapons and begged the skies for forgiveness, because now they understood. This was no war. This was reckoning. Far in the shadows, the clone watched. He had escaped the lab, hidden inside asteroids, grown stronger each day, but now he saw something he didn't expect. The people listened to the original. They obeyed him, not from fear, but guilt. The clone's voice twisted with rage. He wants them to remember. I want them to burn. Tyrion stood above the vault. Elder Thoric appeared, slowly bowing. Is it true? He asked. You were the first? Tyrion nodded. You remember the pain? I remember every second, Thoric whispered. Then why spare us? Tyrion looked up at the sky. Because something else was coming. He could feel it. A second flame, born. In fire, but raised in hate, he turned to Thoric. I am the first flame. I burn for truth. He closed his eyes. But now, something burns for revenge. From the edge of the system, the clone moved closer. His hands burned darker than Tyrion's. The fire inside him was wild, broken, hungry, and he had just chosen his first target, Earth. The Varnock Empire was built on silence, the kind of silence found deep in underground cells. It's the kind that followed screams no one ever heard. For generations they said they were bringers of order, that they gave structure to the stars, that their empire was the reason peace existed. They never told anyone what powered that peace. Now, the truth was out. Every screen in every Varnock system now showed the same footage. Released by Terran Cole, undeniable, unstoppable. Every Varnock citizen saw it. Rows of human children, strapped to chairs, their small hands clenched. Adults screaming wired into machines. Eyes wide, mouths open, no sound recorded just there. Bodies shaking as energy surged from them into glowing blue tubes. And above each chamber is the same label. Pain Harvest Station Sector 11. Earthward. Some called it a fake. Others tried to shut it down, but Tyrion had already burned the filters, torn through the firewalls, and embedded the footage into the broadcast core of every Varnock. Planet had played again, and again, and again, until no one could look away. On Varnock Prime, riots began, not from rage, from guilt. The people had believed they were advanced, civilized, better. But now they saw how their empire had thrived, not through intelligence, but through cruelty. A mother cried on the steps of a courthouse, clutching a recording of a human child screaming. A Varnock teacher wept before her students, one by one. Statues of past emperors began to fall. In a hidden mountain temple, Elder Thoric stood before a wall of burning symbols. The language was older than Varnock itself. It's forbidden to speak. Burned into stone with flame that never cooled, he touched one word. It meant light stolen. Oh. His voice shook as he read. There were not just humans, but many before them. Races forgotten. All taken, all drained. A younger monk looked at him. Then why only the human returned? Thoric whispered, because only the human remembered. Far away, on a ship of twisted steel, the clone watched, He sat alone in a chamber of black fire. Flames didn't light the room, they smothered it. He wasn't calm like Terran. His hands shook, his eyes bled heat. He had seen the same videos. He had heard the same screams, but he didn't feel guilt. He felt rage. They used me too, he growled. They gave me his pain, but not his peace. The clone turned his ship toward Earth. If the originals won't burn the stars, I will. Burn their home. Back on Varnak Prime, Tyran Cole stood above a burning map. It showed every known pain station the Varnak had used, dozens, some destroyed, most still hidden, each one pulsing red on the map behind him. General Cross stood silently. We didn't know. Tyran didn't look at him. You chose not to. The general stepped forward. We want to help now. We want to fix this. Tyran finally turned, then start with the oldest pain. A day later, Tyran stood at the edge of Station Alpha-1, the very first pain harvest facility. Floating in the rings of a dead, his planet silent, empty, abandoned for 200 years. He walked through its broken halls, saw old blood stains on the walls, rusty, chains on the floor, and a small handprint burned into glass. Still there? After centuries, he placed his hand over it and closed his eyes. His fire lit up slowly, not with anger, but memory. A projection played around him ancient. Ghost Dash-like, it showed his younger self. Small, thin eyes full of fear they had. Strapped him into the center of this room. Machines drilled into his spine. Pain turned into energy, the Varnak called it, the clean source. They didn't care what it cost. Tyran opened his eyes. Now, they would. He lit the station from the inside out, but he didn't destroy it. He let it stay burning, glowing as a warning. He left a message carved into the wall. This is where your peace began. It's where your lies die. Across the Empire, revolts began. Ships mutinied. Prison worlds opened their gates. Entire sectors declared independence. The Varnak. Government tried to hold control, but their power no longer came from fear. Fear had turned into fire. The Emperor sat in a dark throne room alone, watching his empire collapse on every screen. He saw his own citizens marching through cities, holding signs that read, "The Empire fed on pain. We were the monsters. Forgive us, Tyran Cole." But forgiveness was not his to give. In the silence of space, Tyran Cole stood on the surface of a moon. He had no army, but he had a message. He spoke through every open channel in the galaxy. Asterisk. Was born in fire. Not by choice, but by your hands. You made me a weapon. You used my pain to light your cities. You drank my tears and called it power, but I am not your enemy. I am your mirror. What burns in me was planted by you. Now look around. Do you see peace? Do you see light? You made it now. Choose. Feed on pain again. Let the fire finally rest. Asterisk, asterisk, some cried when they heard it. Others saluted. Some destroyed their own stations. Others handed over keys and codes, begging to be forgiven. A few still wanted war, but they would face the clone, and he would show no mercy. Back aboard the clones. Ship sensors flashed. Earth was in view. He had never seen it, but somehow it felt like home, a home that never knew him, never called for him, never came to save him. The clone whispered, "If I cannot forget the pain, then no one gets peace." Back on Varnak Prime, Tyran felt the shift. He looked up. A second fire had entered the stars, a twisted one, born of him but not like him. The Varnak Empire had fed on pain, but now they had created something worse, a creature born only to give it back. The stars had always obeyed the Varnak. Their ships sailed across solar systems. Their engineers built factories in the light of twin suns. Their war fleets rested near stars, feeding off their heat. But now, something had changed. On Sector 92, a mining station near a bright blue star sent a distress call. This is Helios node. Star activity dropping, light fading. Power at 3%. We don't know what the sun is. Shrinking. Then silence. In the next hour, 3 more stars dimmed. not exploded, not collapsed, just went dark by midnight. 7 more followed. Solar sails failed, ships stranded, and crops froze. The Varnock Empire, once the rulers of the stars, now stared into a dying sky. The Emperor called an emergency assembly. All major leaders, admirals, and science minds appeared by Hala. "Explain this," the Emperor barked. "Stars do not just turn off." A nervous scientist stepped forward. "We thought it was natural at first. A rare decay." The Emperor leaned forward, and now the scientist swallowed. "Now we believe. Someone is doing it on purpose." Silence followed. Then one admiral whispered, "Tehran coal." Another shook his head. "No, this is worse. Coal's fire gives light." This is the opposite." They were right, because this was not Tehran coal. This was the clone. He floated in the heart of a dying solar system. No ship, no armor, just a body of blackened skin and pulsing red cracks. Around him, the star flickered like a candle in the wind. He stared at it not with awe, but with hate. "Your light fed them," he growled. "They warmed their cities, while I burned in silence." He raised both hands. Flames of cold fire, dark, heavy, unnatural, spiraled from his palms. The star's surface rippled, and then the light vanished. The sun went out. No explosion, no shockwave, just silence from orbit. Satellites captured the moment. A star, shining for 1 billion years, suddenly snuffed out like a Mac, and floating in the dark where the light used to be, a man of black fire. Smiling across the empire, people panicked. The sky was no longer safe. Pilgrimage worlds, sun churches, solar farms, all dark. The empire's oldest symbol had always been a golden sun. Now, that symbol became a warning, a curse. Where the suns die, the clone walks. On Earth, the news arrived late. The humans had watched the chaos unfold from far away. They had no voice in galactic matters until now, because the clone was heading for them, and Earth was glowing in his path. Inside the United Earth's Defense Council, alarms blared. General Sarah Juno stared at the latest image. Red heat trail, moving fast through deep space. The analyst spoke quickly. "Object is humanoid. Temperature exceeds. Solar flares. No ship. No life support. Estimated time of arrival? 11 hours. She turned to her second in command. "Is it coal?" "No, ma'am. Coal glows like fire. This one swallows it." Juno clenched her fist. "Send the beacon. Get me Tehran coal." Tehran stood on the Varnock moon, eyes closed, hands resting on the ground. He felt the stars. He could feel their heat, their music, their heartbeat. But now, silence. 1 star. 2, 5. Gone. He opened his eyes. They didn't take his fire. He whispered, they stole his soul. The Earth beacon reached him in seconds. He listened and said only one word. "I'm coming." The clone reached the edge of Earth's system. He stopped. Floating between Mars and Jupiter, he stared at Earth. Blue, bright, alive. The home that never knew him. "They forgot me," he said. "They erased me." He pointed one hand forward. The planets nearby shook with gravitational force, and the sun behind him dimmed. But before he could move again, flame appeared beside him. Bright, pure, golden dash, red. Tyren, coal. His eyes glowing, his body whole again. The first flame had arrived. The clone didn't flinch. He smiled. "You came to stop me?" Tehran didn't answer. The clone laughed. "I remember your pain, Tehran, because it's my pain too. But you forgave them." Tehran's voice was calm, strong. "I remembered the pain, so I could end it." The clone's eyes narrowed. "I remembered it so I could return it." They circled each other slowly in space. 2 humans. One made of living fire, one made of dead flame. The stars trembled around them. Tehran spoke. "You're not wrong what they did to us. It can't be erased." But this is not justice. This is revenge that never ends. The clone raised his arms. Then let it never end. Let their skies go dark one by one. Let them feel what we felt in that cold lab. Tyron's flame flickered. You've already burned the stars. The clone's voice turned cold. Not enough. Then came the silence. The deep kind. Before two storms meet and the stars held their breath. Suddenly fire met fire. The clone struck first. Throwing a wave of black flame that twisted space itself, Tyron answered with pure light. Sunfire so bright it lit the moons of Jupiter. They clashed in silence. No sound. Only bursts of color. Orange and red. Black and purple. Heat that melted metal millions of kilometers away. Earth's people looked to the sky and saw fire dancing between stars. Some prayed, some wept, some cheered, but none looked away. Inside the firestorm, Tyron reached out, not to strike, to touch. He saw the truth. The clone was not just him. He was the part of Tyron that had never been healed. The scream that never stopped. The pain that never ended. Tyron spoke through the flames. Let me carry it, but the clone fought harder. I don't want peace. I want them to know. Tyron whispered. They already do. And suddenly, the clone paused. The rage faded. He looked down and saw Earth. Not as an enemy, but as a place that should have been home. His fire flickered. His eyes dimmed. And for the first time, cried. The two flames merged for a moment, not to destroy, but to heal. And Earth watched as the fire faded, the clone gone, Tyron glowing. Softly, kneeling in space, he had not won by force. He had won by reminding the fire who it once was. For the first time in many years, the stars were quiet. No more screams. No more pain chambers. No more hidden harvest stations, pulling light from living bodies. The war of fire had ended. But what remained was ashes. Tyre and cold drifted alone. Above Earth, he had not fallen. He had not died. But he was no longer just human. No longer just fire. He was something new. He floated in silence, eyes closed. Heat pulsing softly from his chest. He remembered the clone's last words. You carry it now. Don't let them forget. And Tyron understood the fire wasn't just anger. It was memory. And memory had to be kept alive. On Earth, people looked to the sky. Children pointed at the glowing red light above the planet. A new star, but not a burning sun, but a warship. Not a beacon. It was Terran Cole in the orbiting human station Ark Nova. General Sarah Juno stood at the observation window. Her second-in-command asked, should we try to bring him in? But Juno shook her head. No, he's not ours to control. Not anymore. Round the galaxy, the news spread. The human flame has stopped the dark fire. The Burning Man forgave us. One human ended an empire by lighting the truth. But Tyron didn't want thanks. He wanted only one thing, remembrance. So he spoke again. His voice echoed across every open channel in the galaxy. Soft, calm, strong. Asterisk, asterisk, I am not a weapon. I am not a god. I am not your fear or your hero. I am fire, you. Took it from me, you used it to feed your cities, stole light from screams. But now, you will build something better. Not from pain, not from silence, but from truth. Asterisk, asterisk, then the message changed. Images began to play. Not of war, not of revenge, but of those who were lost. Faces of human children, smiling before they were taken. Scientists who tried to resist. Those soldiers who threw down their guns and protected the innocent. Even Varnock citizens who died helping humans escape. Each face was shown. Each name was said. Tyron made. The galaxy remembered them all. He turned pain into honor, fire into light. The Varnock Empire was gone. Its rulers overthrown. Its armies scattered. Its people now rebuilding with human help. Joint missions. Shared stations. Truth taught in every school, And at the center of it all, it's the glowing star above Earth, still burning, still watching, still reminding. The new galactic flag had 3 parts: a circle of stars, a flame in the center, and a single human hand, open, reaching upward. They called it the Flame Accord, signed by over 200 worlds. Its law was simple: no empire shall rise on the backs of the broken again. No race shall be harvested. Pain is not power. Fire is not fear. We remember the human who burned and chose to light the way instead. But not all stories end with peace. Some whisper that the clone's final spark still lives deep in a dead system, waiting, sleeping, because pain once born does not vanish. It hides and watches and waits. That is why the fire must never go out. And Tyrann, he burned still, but his fire no longer destroyed. It warmed, it healed, it warned. On Earth, a girl asked her grandfather, "Who is the man in the sky?" He smiled. "That is Tyrann Cole. Is he watching us?" As the old man said. "Is he angry?" The man looked up at the glowing red light in the night sky. "No," he whispered. "He's not angry. He's remembering." And in that moment, the flame that had been born in a lab, tortured, forgotten, feared, became something more: a star, a symbol, a promise that no one, no matter how small, no matter how broken, no matter how used, would ever be forgotten again.